Right, now the next question is what colour to have these background boats. If I have them as bright blues and reds, for example, then they're going to come too far forward into the picture. They're going to jump forward and compete for attention with the main boat, which is this yacht. So what I'm going to do is paint one of them a pale blue and the other two a sort of a browny varnish colour, which will not only help to make sure that the bows of this yacht stand out, but also they'll help to complement the colours in the roof of the cottages. Right, now I've gone in between the ribs of the boat, the inside of the boat. I'm going to do a little bit more modelling to that when it's all dried off, but for now that's fine because it gives me the basic outline that I want, and it also helps, as you can see, to define the front end of the cabin of this yacht. So at the moment you can see I'm just painting very freely, painting the inside of this boat here like that, and I'm just going to deliberately let that touch that part of the boat there, and you can see it's blending together nicely. That's what I want to happen. I'm going to leave a little tiny gap in this, and that little white line in between on the top of the hull on the rail is going to help again to define the outline of the boat. Right, again we put some more modelling in that boat when everything's dried off nicely, and I'm going to use essentially the same colour as this for this boat here. Right, now this is where, do you see where I'm actually deliberately leaving little unpainted areas, and that helps to define like that. You see those little white lines I've left here. And all you do, it's not difficult, all you do is just paint up to but not quite touching the pencil lines, and the pencil line actually disappears for the most part. This bit is important. You can see the way I've drawn it so that the corner of the boat has just been overtaken by the tide. As the tide is rising, the corner of the boat is just slightly below the surface here, so we've made sure we've got a horizontal line here regardless of the shape of the boat. Don't worry, it's not going to float away because I'm going to paint a rope in to moor it securely to this bank. Right, I'm going back into the boat now and starting to do a little bit of modelling with, again, essentially the same colour, but because there's now two layers of it, it's going to appear that much darker. I'm making sure the darkest dark is right next to the bows of the yacht. Now by dragging that out there with the dry brush with a bit of luck, we can give an impression that the boat is planked. It's wonderful this, isn't it, where you just have to turn up and let the paint do the job for you and then you take all the credit. Now I've used a couple of devices here which you've seen me use in other tutorials. I don't want the eye to run out of the picture here, so I've pointed this boat back in towards the cottages, and I've also put this post which with its reflection will act as a visual block to the eye moving out of the picture. Now while that's drying, I'm going to put a couple of lines on the boat. This is a dark blue painted line here, which, because I've done a line of very thin line of masking fluid along here, will be able to be defined against that blue in the background. Under here will be the waterline mark, and I'll do that as light red. Right, I'm using pure ultramarine blue for this. I can paint up to the top confidently because I know that the paint will not go over or through that painted line. I've got to be a little bit more accurate when I paint the bottom part of the line, particularly being on rough paper, which this is one of the disadvantages of rough paper. Now it's important, you can see I've maintained that definition between the blue boat in the background with that little bit of light area that I've retained. Now a little tip is, if you don't feel confident about drawing or painting that accurately rather and getting it in between the pencil lines, then get some masking fluid, use a cocktail stick or a mapping pen or the colour shapers I've used, and just draw a little line like that, top and bottom, and then just paint in between. It's exactly the same principle as this in reverse, except where you're trying to reserve the highlight by painting over it. In this case, what you're trying to do is painting either side of the highlight and then painting in between. Right, now we've got to the crux of the matter, which is the water. This part of the dock will reflect quite a dark part here, which is useful to help the stern of this yacht stand out, and this part here will be much more the purpley blue of the top of the sky, and I'm going to put that on as one fairly liquid wash. So as before, I'm going to wet this part of the paper, go around the boat, and then just paint in the colours that I've just described. Now notice that I'm putting the water in and I'm keeping the brush strokes pretty well horizontal. I know I've got to go around the boat there, but apart from that, I'm trying to keep as much of the brush stroke as horizontal as I can, because that's going to help any little flecks of colour that are left to look flat and horizontal and keep the water looking flat. Right, you can see I'm just streaking on horizontally like that. Right, so that's fine for that, and then you can see how the clouds or the sky is streaked from the right upwards towards the left, so we need to streak it in the opposite direction. In fact, it follows the line of the boat really, so that's what we'll do. And you can see the way it's spreading out quite nicely because the water area is quite damp. Here I'm going to put in some raw sienna and some ultramarine blue. I'm just going to leave a tiny little line, you can see there, to give that sort of silvery line against the dock wall. Now we get on to the specifics about the reflection, the harder edge reflections, if you like, of the boats, and probably just about the roof you can see of the cottages. Right, now before I do that, I'm just flicking in some darks and a bit of greenery and some accents on the buildings, particularly the buildings in case they appear in the reflections. I've first of all estimated, as I suggested before, that the height of the houses or the cottages starting from here would really only give you the top of the roof line throughout, and maybe the chimneys as well. And unlike this fence post, which is right on the edge of the water, you've got these boats which are half on the hard standing here, so really all that you're going to see in the water is the opposite to this curved line which curves up that way. So you've got the line which is curving that way, and then that's all you're really going to catch of the reflection that's actually over the water. The rest of the boat, if you think about it, the rest of the boat like that isn't really going to catch any reflection in the water at all. Notice that I'm keeping the brush, even though I'm following the line of the roofs, I'm keeping the brush horizontal, so I'm letting some ripples appear like that, some broken water. What you can do is to come in and just put a darker hint in here while it's, if you're quick enough, while it's still damp, to pick up the boat. I wouldn't fiddle with this too much because really you only get one chance at this, and you don't want to spoil the chance while you've got it.